Okay, thank you all for joining us for the Liberty Road Gateways Committee meeting tonight. Um, you all should have gotten a copy of the agenda as well as a copy of the meeting summary. I do want to make one adjustment to the agenda if it's okay with you all. Um, as I was updating it, I had added in an item or switched around some items so that we could work in the discussion on the Gwinoak Post Office. And then I was going to follow that with a continued discussion on the purpose and needs of the committee. But I neglected to change the times around for those two items. So I want to make sure we give plenty of time to the discussion on purpose and needs. Um, I've tentatively allotted about 10 minutes or so for the Gwinoak Post Office discussion. Um, we can see how that evolves and then decide if we need to make that perhaps another longer discussion at our next meeting. Um, so if it's okay with you guys, I'd like to just make that little tweak to the agenda. Is that all right?
It's okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you. um, And hopefully you all have had a chance to look at the summary from last month's meeting. Were there any changes, questions, anything anybody wanted to bring up about the summary of last month? All righty, wonderful. Then we will assume that that is a good reflection of our discussions. Um, all right, so moving on to our first agenda item here. I just want to give you um, our regular update on the priority projects that the committee has identified. We're making some really good progress. It might not seem like it at times, but I always have a little bit of an update to give you. So let's start with the litter reduction projects. First of all, trash cans. Um, as of yesterday, the update was that the bins are still in production, but they're getting very close to being completed and should be shipping out soon. So I think once they ship, we have only about a 1 to 2 week lag that we need to factor in terms of getting on the installer's schedule. So hopefully those will be rolling pretty soon here. It'll be really nice to have those in place, particularly as the warm weather comes around and there are more people out and about on the streets. The other update regarding our litter reduction strategies, if you'll recall, we had looked at a whole bunch of ideas that had come from committee members as well as our uh, environmental protection and sustainability folks. And I've been working on figuring out a way to take all of those and put them into action. Most of them, many, if not most of them, are probably under the auspices of some county agency or another. So what I've been trying to do is get the permission to pull together what I'm calling a litter reduction coordinating committee, which would be a group of agency representatives from environmental protection and sustainability, solid waste management, code enforcement, public works, and even economic development to do some brainstorming on how we can take all of these ideas that have been generated so far and put them into motion through some good coordination and collaboration. So I've had initial conversations about that. I'll be drafting an invitation very shortly now. And then once we have an initial sense of what may be feasible and most effective from that, both in enforcement as well as advocacy and education standpoint, then I'd like to bring all of that back to you guys for some additional guidance as needed. So that's where we stand with our litter reduction projects. Any questions before I move on to the next community gateways and branding item?
Daphne, you gave us 4 initiatives before. Could you go over them again? Just name them all.
Your the initiatives, I'm sorry, Shirley, the initiatives for litter
There are
reduction?
there are already some plans that Baltimore County has for reducing litter. One of them is the it doesn't stop where you throw it.
Right.
Those kind of things. There were like 4 of them, 4 initiatives that Baltimore County was doing. Can you just list them to me again?
Off the top of my head, I believe what they are is there's a clean green initiative that works with primarily with the schools. There is a like a signage campaign that they have. It's litter doesn't stop here or something like that. There is a Litter Smart Business program. And let's see, the fourth one, I can't think of.
If you can't remember it, just email it out. Email it to all of us so that we can have it again. Because I have people keep asking me about what are the reduction things, and tell us a little bit about the Litter Smart Business ones, because when you email, how about that? And that way we won't tie up the meeting.
Great, thank you. And I think it's also probably in some of our previous minutes, but I'll make it easy on you and just reiterate them in our meeting summary. How about that?
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, noted. Let's see here. So the second priority that I wanted to update you on is the community gateway signage and branding. I emailed the branding subcommittee last week with an update. It's a little slow going right now, but I think we're making progress. After last month's meeting, where we talked about wanting to have a couple of components to this branding project that would start with gateway signage, I began following up on this real critical question of ownership of the existing signs that are out there. So the long and short of it is, those were put in, I think, in the 90s, maybe early 2000. They were put in the 90s, and then I think they were there was some maintenance done in the early 2000s. There's not a whole lot of documentation on that, and I've had a lot of inquiries with longtime staffers and back and forth about who remembers what. The consensus seems to be that they were probably installed with community development block grant funds, which would have necessitated that they be placed on private property. So what we think is the status now is that there was some sort of agreement with the property owners when they were put in initially. And so now my next step will be to reach out to those property owners to either affirm or renegotiate those agreements so that we have permission to go on and do the enhancements and maintenance that that we've been talking about. Sheila, did you have something you wanted to ask or add?
Yes, but it was about the literature initiatives. We can come back to it.
Okay, give me just 1 minute and I'll kind of wrap up this this update, and then we'll go back to the litter initiatives. Thank you. Okay, so then the other thing that I've been pursuing related to an ownership question um, stems from our conversation that sort of branched from the gateway signage and branding to include some questions about public art along the corridor. And this is all part of an idea that we would potentially um, create for a design consultant to respond to that would sort of unify a lot of different elements, signage, public art, banners that we've been talking about, that sort of thing. So I'm trying to get the ownership questions resolved before we put out any kind of RFP, because we don't want to ask a consultant to do something that they're going to meet some roadblocks with. So the other ownership question that I've been exploring is the ownership of the retaining walls that are along Liberty Road inside the Beltway. A number of people have mentioned that there are some good opportunities to use basically those blank slates for, or blank canvases for some kind of public artwork. Those are, I have confirmed that they are owned and maintained by State Highway as opposed to the county. And so now I'm in the process of trying to explore with our district engineers the possibility of doing something on those walls. My first attempt was met with some resistance because they don't want to create distractions for drivers. That was the first response. I have followed up trying to sort of push on that a little bit. So I will continue to do that. I have good support from Director Lafferty on that, and we'll continue to see what we can do in terms of doing something with those retaining walls. So again, the idea is that I'm trying to get some of these questions resolved so that we could then, so I could work with the branding subcommittee to prepare some kind of an RFP for a design consultant to respond to that would help drive this priority forward. Any questions on those updates?
No, just a statement. I believe that the design people should be thinking about a logo that we can use in the future too.
Yes, so that would be definitely part of the scope of work. And I would ideally see that being the culmination of some really robust public outreach and community engagement conversations around what sorts of themes really characterize the corridor, what are the things that people are most proud of and want to see translated into some kind of logo. So, and for sure, that would be a process that I think you would want to have several options to look at that reflect that input. Linda, did you have a question on the branding topic?
Well, I mean, just what you were saying in terms of, we've already discussed in the past some ideas through this group and through the group that preceded this group dealing with shopping centers when we were talking about commercial corridor and artwork and so forth. We threw out a whole list of ideas. Can't we, instead of just dragging it out, sort of just list maybe a half dozen or so, or if we're going to say there's 10 communities we want to designate or identify, or 12, can we come up with just some suggestions so that they'll have a jumping off point of how, let's see, so they want to have something about African American history and the medical community and highlight the library and the fact that Randallstown used to be an actual town, and you know, that at
Yeah.
least be some jumping off point so they can say, how can we bring that theme together under one main logo? And then for each section, have that main logo and then each identifying community under it.
Thank you. You're very correct that there have been some ideas generated already. And I think that would be something that I think would be appropriate to roll into the RFP would be, we've done some initial conversation about this. Here's what we've already come up with. And we would look to you, the consultant, to build off of those and to concretize them in some way.
Right. We talked about the Negro National Baseball League and a
Mhm.
variety of things.
Yep,
Underground Railroad. We talked about a whole variety of things.
you're right. Yep. Thank you. Okay, Sheila, did you want to circle back around to the litter control, litter reduction ideas?
Oh, the only thing I wanted to ask was, are they going to be any way to identify how effective their plans are? I mean, we've over the years seen many litter reduction initiatives, and they just fall by the wayside. Litter doesn't improve. Are they going to put some type of some process in place to assess whatever their plans are? And if it's effective, we can keep doing it. If it's not, we can stop.
Yeah. That's a really important point. And in fact, I was talking with somebody from environmental protection today about the very thing that she has coordinated similar things in the past. Everybody gets together and is very supportive of doing something, and then it kind of falls by the wayside. My response to that was actually that because this effort is bubbling up from you all as the representatives of the community, and and is endorsed through this Gateways Action Plan, that gives us maybe a little bit more accountability than just somebody who's starting a conversation internally and trying to do something because it's a good idea. So I would like to, when we start these conversations, I would like to have that idea of setting benchmarks or metrics and doing the regular assessments of effectiveness built into whatever approach we come up with. Because you're very right. If you don't have any accountability or way of gauging your success, then it's very easy to sort of let things fall by the wayside. And the accountability would be to you all as the implementers of this action plan and the partners of the county in making that happen. So that's my approach, and I'd like to be able to suggest that to this group. And certainly once we have some initial conversations, I'll bring all of that back to you. And if there's anything that you guys see that could be strengthened in that regard, I would welcome your suggestions. Shirley?
Yes, in the past, I have been involved in several of the cleanup issues and things like that. But what happens is that it only occurs at a certain time, and then it doesn't occur at any other time during the year. And I think it has to be whatever it is. It has to be a repeat program, either every other month or every month or something like that, that is a continual look at what we need done. Otherwise, it's going to fall by the wayside just like it did before.
Yeah. Yeah, my hope is by making this a bit more collaborative and comprehensive, that it's not going to be a single program, that it's going to be a whole strategy that has multiple prongs to it. So my hope is that it wouldn't just be, let's do this on this day at this time of year, and that's
Good.
sort of it. But again, I'll be taking all of your ideas from, I think we talked about it back in January, February, and using those as the starting point for our discussions. And then I'll bring the results of those discussions back to you guys, and we can refine them, add things in that you think are necessary as we go. Okay. Let's see here. The other priority project that we have surfaced here is the need to provide some information on housing assistance programs, and specifically organizing a housing resource day. That's going to be held on Thursday, June 8th from 3 to 8 p.m. at the Randallstown Community Center. And Siobhan Jackson from Diversified Housing, hi Siobhan, has graciously agreed to give us an update on not just the Housing Resource Day, but also particularly a state revitalization program grant that Diversified received, that'll help put some of those resources into people's hands. Siobhan, I think you wanted to give folks an update on that, and then also maybe talk to them about how to help spread the word, right?
Sure, yeah, absolutely. Oh, good evening, everyone. It's been a long day, so good to kind of just be sitting here talking with you guys. I think, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but last year I spoke with you guys about a grant that we were going to apply for that would help families or homeowners to rehab their properties, or do some light rehab work. We did apply for the grant, and I thank you all that wrote. I thank all of you that wrote letters of support. We really appreciate it, and I think it definitely helped our application. I believe I requested 200,000, which I knew I was pushing it. I knew we were pushing it, but you always go for more, and then just let them, kind of take it down. So we were awarded 100,000, which is good, for a pilot program. That's pretty good. What was stated in the application was we would do at least $10,000 forgivable loans. So they're essentially a grant. As long as the homeowner stays in the house for 5 years, the $10,000 is forgiven. When we put this together, I know the state normally likes to see things done in a manner where it's not just a straight grant. They kind of want to see, that I don't know, there's a little bit of give and take. So I did the 5 years, which I thought was fair. So as long as the homeowner is in the house for the 5 years, the $10,000 is absolutely forgivable. This particular project it's a Bernie project, which can be used inside the Beltway. So it's for homeowners that are inside the Beltway. I've left it very flexible as far as the rehab work that is to be done to the homes. It can be interior or exterior work. The only thing that we do require, and it's a state requirement as well, and I think it's just, prudent to do so, is that we have to use licensed contractors. So that's something that the state will be looking for. That's something that we will have to be checking for, just to make sure that the homeowners that utilize this program, that they are using licensed contractors to do the work on their properties. There is an income guideline. I tried to push it with the state. and I took it to 85% of area median income. So what that is a household of one, that's $66,000, which I thought that was pretty good. For a household of two, that would be 75,000. A household of three, it's 85,000. Household of four is 94,000. So I use the 85% of area median income as our income guidelines. I guess the goal now is to determine one, whether or not we want to or how to get the word out. How to get the word out about the program. And honestly, it's so funny. I'm coming on today, but I just got the actual signed contract yesterday at like 4:45. Because I was just like, I told Daphne, I said, I really don't want to talk about it until I see the contract. I know what they expect of us. I know, I was just like, I'm not saying anything until I get that congratulations email. And so I got it yesterday. I think it was like at 4:50. So we are good to go with this project. I'm sorry, excuse me, Miss Sheila. No, I'm sorry. I see a hand up, but I can't see who it is.
Linda Dorsey Walker.
Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. I couldn't. For some reason, I need to increase my screen. Okay. Yeah, Linda, you have a question? Oops, I think you may be muted.
I said I was letting you finish your statement because I wanted to ask a question about something that Marcia sent out today,
Okay.
which was a national planning and implementation grants that come to $98 million, and Maryland has a portion of it. And so they're accepting applications right now. So she was saying that community groups like this that need to have projects done, it can either be done for housing, affordable housing, or for large public projects. Large public projects being, for example, what we were talking about doing at Randallstown Community Center. So continue. I just wanted to see if that does not replace this money so that we can still use it outside the Beltway.
Yeah, and I think that's a good point to make, and that's something that I want to think about a little bit more as well, because we do want something that we can utilize outside of the Beltway. This is really good for inside the Beltway, again, because it's so flexible, but we do need to, I'm sorry guys, my dog is losing it. But we do need something that we can utilize outside of the Beltway. So I totally agree. And I've kind of been trying to think about it and figure out like what funding sources. And I'm not sure, Daphne, if that would be a community legacy type thing. I'm not really sure, but we can kind of put our heads together and see if we can figure out something that we can do that's similar, but just outside of the Beltway, because I agree, the Bernie program is so the area, the boundary is just so tight that, I mean, it will help those that it will help, but there are a lot of other people that need help as well.
So if that money were available, I mean, it's available to anybody that applies, but is that something that you all could apply for on behalf of the community? Would we have to do it as a nonprofit entity?
You know what? And I got the email from Marcia as well. And I have not, actually, I got the email directly from HUD as well. And I just haven't had a chance to read it yet. So I would need to like review it and just see what the guidelines are. And then maybe, I think we can maybe just pick back up and see, because it could possibly be, I just have not had a chance to really read it. I saw it today though. It did come through today, but I just haven't had a chance to read it. So let me take a look at it. And it could possibly be something that we could do.
Did other people get it? I'm not sure if I was the only person that saw it.
Would you forward that to me, Linda?
Sure.
Because there also is a question. I mean, depending on which types of organizations are eligible to apply, there might be different partnerships that could be formed in order to still tap into that. So obviously, Liberty Road Gateways Committee is not is not incorporated. If you wanted to sort of spearhead something, you need to partner with an eligible organization like Diversified, maybe any number of other organizations that are probably 501c3s or C4s or C6s, depending on who's who's eligible. But yeah, if you could forward that, then we can continue to explore that and revisit that at another meeting to see how we could tap into those monies.
Absolutely.
So Siobhan, do you want to give us a little bit of we want to talk about spreading the word, and I wonder if maybe we could combine that discussion with an update on the Housing Resource Day, because that's a major way to try to get the word out to people as well. So
yeah,
maybe
and
you could give us an update on that.
Sure. And that is like a major concern of mine, because my thought is if we did want to apply again, then the goal is to, and I think Daphne, I received the email from you stating that those funds will be coming available. I'm like, we just got funded. And that's like, you just gave me the contract.
You just got your agreement.
I'm just like, oh my gosh, it took, it's almost a year now. But anyway, so yeah, we definitely want to try to move the money, because the state does look at that, and if they see that we're moving the funds, and if we decided that we did want to apply again for that or something else, it just looks good. So absolutely. I'll just say this: if you have any neighbors, or if you yourself, if you think you could utilize the program, then absolutely, we should have the applications, the flyer, and everything done by, I believe staff said probably next Wednesday. So Daphne, I will send that out to you if that's okay. And if you can just disperse it to the group, and then we can kind of start there, because I kind of don't want to wait until the event. I'd rather kind of try to hit the ground rolling, because they said we can start spending funds now. So, but I guess to kind of tie into the event, as Daphne said, the event will be happening on June 8th. From 3 to 8 at the Randallstown Community Center. It is a housing and community resource fair. So we're trying to just tie in a lot of the resources that are available in our area. We want people to come out, hear about them. I know Baltimore County stated that they will be taking applications for certain some of their programs. I think they have a housing rehab program. And you know what, Daphne, that's something that we may want to talk with Marcia about, because the county has a rehab program, and that can be used anywhere in the county. So that may be a resource for outside of the Beltway. If we could, I don't know if they would do this, but if we could kind of get like a pot of money set aside. I don't know if they would do that, but it doesn't hurt. It never hurts to ask. I'm always willing to have a conversation.
Marcia and her team did come to one of our meetings just recently and shared all of those resources. So actually, that's where this Housing Resource Day kind of bubbled up from. So yeah, any way that we can kind of just maximize leverage and spread the word about those things, I think is a perfect fit.
Absolutely. And then with the event, I think right now, when I left the office today, I checked with staff. I think we have like maybe so far 9 groups signed up to attend. But several organizations said they're interested. So hopefully the forms will start to roll in. If any of you guys know of an organization that's providing any type of services that you think people need to know about, feel free to invite them, or if you want to reach out to me and I can invite them to these events. We just really want to have as many community resources as possible there, because I hear a lot of times I'll meet with people and they're like, oh, we didn't know about that, or we didn't know it. So I'm like, I want this to be an opportunity where people can come find out what's available to you, so you can take advantage of the resources that are available. I'm sorry. And Sheila, I know I see your hand now. I can't figure out how to enlarge my screen. I'm sorry, guys. So, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Miss
So,
Sheila.
Sheila and then Linda, but let me just quickly jump in and say, I have the flyer. So I will also share that with the committee so that they can continue, so they can start spreading the word
Yes.
even before then.
Yes, yes,
Sheila,
absolutely.
go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to know, I've saw the income for this grant, and it can be used for anything. It doesn't have to be for rehab or anything. It can be used for renovations also.
Yes, with this initial program, it can be, we can do rehab / renovation with this initial round. Yes.
And can be combined with private funds.
Yes, ma'am. So if it were to go over, because the max that we have allotted would be $10,000. If it were to go over that, yes. If you were willing to put the additional funds in, then absolutely yes.
Okay, now the other grants you're talking about, will they have the same income limits or are they lower?
I believe they're lower. I do believe they're low, but I'm not 100% sure with the Baltimore County Rehab Program. And I should know this. Daphne, do you know? I should know the income guidelines off the top of my head, and I don't.
I don't know them off the top of my head either.
Yeah, so I
Because
would, Ms. Sheila, I would have to get back to you on that one. I can get the income guidelines because I don't know them off the top of my head.
okay, because the biggest challenge is that the income levels are so so low that a
Mhm,
lot of homeowners do not
mhm,
qualify. They keep focusing on what they consider low income, and
mhm.
homeowners don't qualify. You have a lot of younger couples, two incomes, they're over.
Yeah,
They need the work, and they have families, so they're obviously not wasting their money being foolish with it, but they've got those income levels so low that
yeah.
they don't qualify. And I was hoping that at some point, by looking at the way the funds are being used and where the requests are coming from, that someone would say, wait a minute, how come these areas we're not getting a lot of applications? It's not because people don't know as much as when people go and look, they see our household is making too much money to qualify.
And I totally agree with that. This past year, we saw the biggest HUD LMI income jump. I think it was like the biggest in probably like 10 years or so. And that still wasn't, it still wasn't that great. But I mean it was a change. It was a step up. But no, I absolutely agree with you. And I did, like with this program, like I said, I did try to bump it up a little bit. Um, but especially like when you're dealing with state funds and things of that nature, especially because I kind of had to balance it out, because especially since we're forgiving the entire amount after 5 years. I know some programs don't. I know there are some rehab programs, and Amy, you can kind of back me up on that, where they don't forget. I don't think it's forgiven. I think it's just a second until the person sells the home or what have you. Whereas with this one, I tried to set it up where it's not attached to your property forever. So after the 5 years, but I feel like sometimes with the state, you have to have a little bit of give and take. So you can't, ask for a really high income and then forgive the loan. You got to kind of balance it out there a little bit. So
Yeah. I had a question.
Yeah, Linda.
Yeah. Is there some, I don't know what the time frame is for you trying to utilize that pool of money, that pot of money, but is there any way you can tie that into the June 8th marketing? In other words, letting people know, here's your opportunity. I mean, in addition to giving out information and applying in general for um, housing assistance as far as support for getting into a new home, here's your opportunity if you already own a home to see if you can compete for one of these 10 loans, because you only have 10 and there's way more people than that that need it. For example, I'm thinking just on one block that I know of that's inside of the Beltway, all the houses were built at the same time, and none of the electrical systems that were put in the houses at that time are compliant with today. And
Mhm.
to fix every electrical wire in a house is more than $10,000. And that's
Absolutely.
lots of people. So that's why I'm trying to figure out, what do you do about all those seniors? Because almost everyone on the block, I don't just mean is a senior. I'm a senior. I'm talking about people who are in their 80s and 90s,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
how do you ever pass the home on to a new younger family if they have to face that much debt ahead of them to make the house, even if you sell a house or transfer a house in a as is condition, that's a huge expenditure.
Hmm.
And so, I'm thinking in terms of that. But also, I'd had a more specific question. Remember, we talked about using as part of this June 8th thing, the computer lab. Did they ever get back to you about that?
Yes, they did, and we will be using it.
Okay, good.
I
I just
believe
want to make
that's
sure.
where. So thank you. I thank you. Yep. I think that's where Marcia wants to do the intake for some of her programs. So yeah. Yep. They did. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is a lot, and it's funny what you're saying is absolutely true. What brought me to want to do this particular grant was our weatherization program, and us going into a lot. We got Bernie funds to do weatherization, and we were going into a lot of the homes of the seniors, and we couldn't weatherize because there was so much work that needed to be done before we could even weatherize. So I was like, something else needs to give. So that's kind of what sparked this. So I absolutely agree with you.
Well, and I think your point about trying to push this money out so that you can show effectiveness and need is really good. So between, I think the connections that the committee members can leverage, will definitely get this in the hands of the Kirk Mitchell, our community engagement representative, and the Housing Resource Day. Hopefully that'll go lickety split, and we'll be able to prove the need in a way that positions you for some future funding as well. We do need to move on, but one quick question that I have for the group. We have the opportunity for the Gateways Committee to have a presence at the Housing Resource Day. If we wanted to have a table there with some information, whatever information that may be. So give some thought to that. We would need some volunteers to man the table and to be willing to engage with folks as they visit it around. But I will pose that question in a follow-up to this meeting, and if you all want to weigh in, and if there's anybody who wants to volunteer to represent the Gateways Committee at the Housing Resource Day, that would be great. And then I'll share that with you, Michelle. I think there's a form that we can fill out, right? Okay. So, Grace, did you have something really quickly before we move on?
Yeah, I just asked if we can just get a quick reminder of when the day is. I'm sorry.
June 8th from 3 to 8 p.m. at the Randallstown Community Center. All right. Ms. Sheila?
Yes. I wanted to know real quick, is Shantae's Siobhan's, I'm sorry, staff involved with the program that gives grants for the purchase of homes, or is it only for rehab?
Yes. Yeah. Are you talking about the closing cost grants?
Whatever assistance is available, if someone wants to purchase a home, whether whether it goes towards a down payment, whether it goes to closing costs, whatever. So that is also part of what your staff does?
Yes. Yes, we do. Yep.
Okay. So I
And
think
we do
maybe,
monthly workshops. So we do monthly home buyer workshops. And if you want, Miss Sheila, because I don't want to hold up your meeting, I can chat with you. I think I still have your phone number. We can
right.
chat offline, and I can get you the dates to our upcoming workshop if you think you know some people that may want to attend.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay. Okay. Yep. I'll follow back up with.
Thank you, Siobhan.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm excited that that this is moving forward, and hopefully we'll be able to get that money spent quickly. All right. For our next agenda item, I invited Amy Menzer to give you an update on the Community Development Organization. The work on that is moving quickly ahead, and I know a number of you all are members of the work group that's been helping to sort of craft what this CDO might look like. So, Amy, I'm going to turn it over to you if you want to give the group an overview of where things stand, and then any questions or clarifications that other folks want to add, please do.
Sure, thanks. And our consultant team, we was just running a meeting for the work group last night, so I did not ask Carla to be part of this update just because I, figured she could use a break. But so since, I was a couple months ago, I think I updated you. Where we are now is that the scope of the work for the project was officially expanded by County Council to include basically just parts of District 2 that are along Liberty Road inside the Beltway. The group has drafted purpose, mission, vision, and values statements, and those will be, carried forward to the new board that's forming. So those aren't ready yet for public consumption, but they'll be part of what the board takes on in pursuing filing for incorporation as a nonprofit or as a organization, and then filing with a 501c3 application with the IRS to get the official nonprofit designation. So they've, worked those out. They, worked hard over like the course of 2 or 3 meetings to develop a needs assessment survey with questions that they felt, kind of adequately sort of looked at the range of issues they wanted to hear from the community about, and while balancing the fact that, if the survey was too long, too many people would sort of give up and not finish the survey. So that was the challenge on that. So the initial plan had been for the needs assessment to be completed by the work group and handed off to a board of directors that was formed. In the course of the work, the consultant team felt that, the group was really sort of ready to move forward into forming a board. And so the decision was made to, convey the results of the needs assessment as, so that needs assessment is really just starting, because the survey is now been released. It's posted on the hub page, the county website page. It's been distributed by social media. Thanks, Daphne. So the hub page has links to it in English and in Spanish. And any of you all who can help with sort of getting the word out in the community, I believe there are about 140 responses so far, all in English except for one, at least according to last night's work group meeting. And we'd really like to see, to my mind, I'd love to see 500 responses at least, but whether that's realistic, I don't know, but certainly more than I'd like to see at least 300 responses. Obviously, the community is much larger than that, but it's a question of getting people to, there are also paper copies of the survey that have been distributed in the library. A number of paper copies were filled out and submitted, collected at the YMCA. And that's great. So hopefully we'll be able to do some more outreach of that sort. The survey closes on April 30th. So there's not a lot of time left, you know, but the idea was to sort of gather that feedback and then be able to incorporate that along with other kinds of data that the board the new board will look at, and that will inform the strategic plan and priorities for the new organization as it's formed. So survey is up until April 30th. The other major thing is that there's been a lot of work in the last 2-3 weeks to sort of clarify what's the process that's going to be followed to solicit board member applications. And that information, we are working to have that go live on the County Hub by next Monday, the 17th. I literally don't have all the information in my hands yet to convey it to my colleague to put it up there, but because I'm not the one, I don't have access to update that myself, but I'm hoping that will all be up and live on the County Hub on Monday. And then those applications are also going to be due on April 30th. So, and we are soliciting applications from the community at large, obviously from among the people who have served on the work group. There's a whole set of criteria that the work group and the consultant team and the county help develop it's really about trying to make sure that the board that's formed is balanced in terms of geography, in terms of representing, community leadership, businesses, institutions throughout the area, representing different skill sets. So, people that may have financial expertise and fundraising expertise, people that may have marketing expertise, knowledge about particular subjects like business development or whatever the issues are. And the board that's formed at this point will have 9 voting members plus 2, we believe 1 or 2, that's still unclear as of this moment. 1 or 2 ex officio members from county government that are, being asked to be part of it, really to help with shaping the initial launch of the organization, and also just help and provide their skills on economic development and organizational development and fundraising. So the timeline for those applications is they're due April 30th. Then from there, the applications will be reviewed by the consultant team, the Nelson Ideation Group. And then the consultant group will share that with the county. And basically the county executive and his team and the planning department will be looking at the applications to, again, address making sure that there's that the initial board is a well-balanced board. And then beyond that, those initial 9, the new board that's going to be, creating its articles of incorporation, its bylaws, they will be able to add additional board members as they see fit, according to whatever process they set up with their bylaws. The concern from the county's perspective was if we added too many board members at this particular moment, well, the board hasn't yet figured out, the needs assessment is still in process. The board hasn't yet figured out what are the priorities for the organization going to be. So it could be that, by the end of the summer, it's obvious that, oh, there's really a need. We need to get somebody on the board with this particular skill set that wasn't initially foreseen or wasn't seen as much of a priority as perhaps later in this process will become apparent. So we wanted to make sure that there was room, because in my experience, you really don't want a board with 20 people on it. That's a large number for a nonprofit. So we wanted to make sure there was some room to add some people to reflect the needs that are identified that's going to be happening in the next 2 months or so. So give me a second here. I'm trying to think if there's any other sort of obvious thing I'm forgetting to say. I'm sure there's something. But I'll stop there.
Thank you, Amy. Does anyone have any questions that, based on where the work group is right now? Amy or
Sheila,
other folks who've been
you were at the
participating.
meeting last night, Sheila, or anybody who's been on the work group, if there's things you want to add or.
They do want you to be invested in the organization if you want to be on the board.
Invested financially, yeah, there was some discussion about that, and the board can refine that, but part of the board criteria did include that each board member would be willing to make a financial contribution that's meaningful to them personally, and so that's language that's remains open-ended about a precise amount, but it's about ensuring that the board can tell any funder that they have 100% board giving. And it's certainly the case that people will say, well, I give lots of my time. Isn't that enough? It's like, well, your time is definitely super, super important. But it's also important to make a financial investment. So that's what that's about. Thanks, Shirley, for mentioning that.
Welcome.
Anyone else want to add anything that Amy hasn't highlighted already?
Nope.
Linda, do you have a question? Linda Keith? I'm sorry, Linda Keith.
Yes, hi. Good evening, everyone. I just had a question for Amy. The financial, would that be the financial situation for the board? Would that be like a yearly given or one-time given investment?
It would be probably an annual donation that a board member would have to make. And again, in my past experience, that's something where some board members, that may be $10 or $20 for the year. Other board members, may be able to give, $200 or even $500. So, but it's going to range, and that's something that the board itself will work out further. The point that the consultants and the county wanted to make sure was clear at the outset was that working toward achieving 100% board giving is an important benchmark that many funders evaluate organizations on. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that it was also clarified that that's something that the board would have to work out. It's not that they're looking for deep pockets to participate. They're looking for people who are more invested in knowing and understanding the community problems and issues to participate. And that although this is something the board will work out, they said that it would probably focus more on, okay, you're not giving as much as we think you should, as much as if there were a fundraiser that you would step up and participate as much as you can, whether it means selling tickets to a banquet or something like that. They just want to make sure all members would be invested in helping the board to raise funds. Doesn't mean like, okay, everybody's got to give $1,000 every year, something like that. But they want you invested in, if there is some type of effort that comes together where the board members would have to work together to raise funds, they want you to be invested in that as much as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sheila. Shirley?
Yeah, you have to look at this investment just like you would there. I don't know of any community organization that doesn't ask you for some type of monetary investment. LRCC has a fee that they charge for community organizations and a fee that they charge for everyday people that are members of their community. It's just the idea that I don't look at it any different than I do the dues that you would pay to join an organization. It's just to show that you care about the organization that you're invested in.
Thank you.
So another point that was discussed further on, I'm sorry, if there are questions, I'm on my phone, so I can't see if there's questions, Daphne.
No, I don't think so, but we do, Amy, we do need to move on to our next agenda item, but if you have something quick you want to add?
Well, I think you'll, when the criteria and all of that is available on the hub and distributed, which will hopefully be on Monday, like I said, it'll become apparent. But, the criteria starts out with, that the board will be community-based. And that means that a minimum of 75% of the board members would be people who live or work in the focus area. And then the remainder of the board members, which could be people that have some skill or access or contacts that we think will be valuable to the organization, even though they may not live or work in the corridor. They might be from outside the area, but at least 75% of the people will be from inside the focus area. So there's a lot more in that document, but you'll be able to see that for yourselves when it's all posted, hopefully very soon.
Excellent. Thank you so much for sharing that update, and thank you to everybody on this committee that is also serving on the work group. I'm sure all of your insight and contributions are really valued. So, and of course, I'm sure this is going to be an amazing opportunity for the whole Liberty Road corridor to realize some things that have been long hoped for. All right. Moving on, we have our next agenda item is discussion on the Gwynn Oak Post Office that Sheila had requested we add to our agenda. If you don't know where it is, it's at the very far eastern end of the corridor, almost at the city line. And it kind of sits down below the road a little bit and has probably seen some better days. So Sheila, I'll let you sort of introduce the topic, but I do want to just note, I'd like to see where we can take this discussion, but as I was looking back through the action plan that's sort of guiding the work of this group, I don't see anything in there that specifically relates to the post office or recommendations for doing something with it. So I think we want to be a little bit careful in terms of how we, not careful, but we just want to keep an eye on how we are surfacing issues and addressing them as a committee based on the committee's kind of base charge to help implement that action plan. So, so with that, I'll let Sheila introduce the topic, and then we can kind of see where we want to go from here with further discussions on that.
The reason why I'm concerned about the post office is because it is the post office that was designated and named the Perrin J. Mitchell Post Office. Perrin J. Mitchell was the first Black elected to the United States House of Representatives from the state of Maryland. And anyone who was familiar with his work, with his devotion, and his accomplishments would know he was a real trailblazer. And the way that they have allowed that post office to deteriorate regarding the memory of that man, to me, is an insult to his legacy. I know that the work that has to be done at the post office would not come from county or state funds. It would have to come from the federal. And I would think that our position would be to lobby the county officials, the state officials, and federal officials to do something that's better representative of the late Representative Perrin J. Mitchell. And I think this is the Liberty Road Gateway Committee. It is definitely at the gateway to the committee, that if you go and said, I'm going to Baltimore County, I see this beautiful sign at the gateway somewhere near Flannery Road and Northern Parkway. And then you go up and you see this rundown post office. And then if you happen to see that it's Perrin J. Mitchell Post Office, it's just further insult. And then you go up and to see a lovely post office on Offutt Road or in Milford Mill on Rolling Road. And so why does this person's post office look so ragged?
Thank you. I shared with Sheila prior to this meeting that I've been making some inquiries into how we could potentially address this issue. I'm aware that there are already some efforts underway to try to advocate for a new post office. But I don't know the current status of those. I do believe that funding requests would have to originate probably with Representative Mfume. And
I don't think I don't think he has it any longer.
What was that, Linda? I'm sorry.
I'm not sure that now falls within his current lines.
Oh, okay. I'll have to check that.
It might be Rupersberger at this point.
Okay.
But it does have to be the member of Congress. And please understand that I remember being a child going to Grove Park Elementary School. So if you look at what the current configuration is for that post office, in my early childhood, there was like 10 feet more land in front of it. When Liberty Road was expanded, they took some of that land away. Okay. And so I thought you were going to say, I mean, the fact that people years later decided to name it the Perrin J. Mitchell Post Office doesn't have a thing to do with Perrin J. Mitchell and his accomplishment. I thought you were going to say it's dangerous. It's a dangerous entry and exit. And unfortunately, because of where it sits and how it sits, unless the purchasing of some of the other properties around it or repurposing of some of the parkland that sits a little further back, that heads off back toward Gwynn Oak Park, is done, it all has to be done through the member of Congress, and it will involve the purchasing of some land. And I don't know that that's something that we can get into since it's neither state or it's county. But I do think it's worth asking for, to be sure, because it's a dangerous location.
That is still part of 7. That is still part of 7. So it is still,
okay.
It's still under there. And I agree with you. Like I said, it has to be federal. But the only thing that I would think that our group will be able to do is to advocate, to bring it to the attention on the county level, on the state level, on the federal level, that we as residents of these communities want something better as a representative of him and his accomplishments. When they chose to say we're going to make this what we're going to, some way for people to notice, some way for people to look at and say, oh, this is, who is this person? Why is this post office named after him? What's there doesn't work. And whatever has to be done, it will be up to the federal government, I guess, to make their decision about how much money they will spend and that type of thing. But I think that I feel that personally, that if I can do something to improve the way that looks, to have this named after him, I would like to do it. And since it is part of improving the gateway, to me, it's worth the effort.
Aaron, did you want to add something? Oh, can you unmute, please?
I'd like to suggest that since we're talking about a piece of federal property, not only should we reach out to our representatives, but also we should reach out to each of the 2 senators because it's federal. And we can certainly, I know that we call ourselves a committee, but we don't have officers. And the only thing I'm saying is that we've had extensive conversation, but in order to get something done, a person needs to make a motion that we as a committee reach out to our federal people, bring it to their attention about the condition and location of that post office. And what Linda said many years ago, it had more property, but because of the widening of the road, we lost that one. So I don't know. So I'm going to go ahead and get out there on the limb and say I'm going to move that we, the committee, reach out to our elected officials at the federal level,
including Senator Cardin.
Well, that's that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Elected officials representing this area. To number one, show the picture. Number two, show the need. To show the lack of safety, because you're right, Linda, it's dangerous pulling in there and pulling out. So that's my recommendation. I mean, that's my motion, rather, that we take an action.
I second that.
Okay, so let me make sure I have this right, just for the record. So your motion is that committee members reach out to their congressional representatives to state the need for improvements to the state of the post office.
Okay, we're asking for a new building or certainly major renovations of the old building, but whatever we can do to get something attractive and safe in this area.
Okay.
Yeah, it probably involve a new building, since all the wiring and things that you have to have now for the new buildings. But
they make that decision. Now let's get with this motion. There's a motion on the floor.
Okay.
I second it. So
Linda seconds. Okay. There's a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Okay. Hearing none.
All in favor?
All in favor. Well, I'm always a little nervous about calling votes on Zoom.
It's okay.
Just raise your hand.
Raise your hand. That's all.
Let's do this. Raise your hand, either with the icon or with your actual hand. Those in favor. Okay. Looks like it is unanimous. Thank you.
I'll take the responsibility for drafting the letter, and I can share it with a couple more people. We can have several people looking at that. And we'll want to get it out real soon. Thank you.
Excellent.
And believe me, I appreciate it, because one of us has a 94-year-old mother that still pays every bill at that post office and insists that her children take her there.
Oh,
multiple times a week.
And can I make a note about something too? This is Kaylin. I wanted, and I'm so glad that whole thing was brought up, but I want to let you all know that we care for our parents, and recently my dad just died, but we are
still caring for my mother. And she is the same way. And we put those checks into the mailbox that is outside of the post office. And I just want you to know, we got a call from Baltimore County Police that they had found checks paid to the nurses that help us. And she found this guy is part of a ring, and the ring is stealing checks from that mailbox. And so I just want everybody to be aware. Another man came into the post office 2 days ago and said, my creditor didn't get the bill. I mean, didn't get my check, and it's been 2 weeks since I sent it. And I told him about it because I forgot the lady's name, but I can get it. But the lady who called me from the Baltimore County Police said, if this ever happens to you, to call her. And she said, because they are still working on getting all the people in that ring who are doing this. But ours is one of the main post offices that they are attacking. And what they do is they go and break into the box on a Friday night or Saturday or Sunday when nobody's in the post office. And that's how they're able to do it.
See, and see, the crazy part is all post offices are supposed to stay open 24/7 because some people have mailboxes. The last 2 times I took my mother there and I said, look, put your bills inside the drop box inside the building. The building was locked. When I want to go to the post office in my neighborhood, I can just walk in. The one on Alfred Road, the one on, like you said, the Windsor Mill one, you can just walk in 24/7 because people have post office boxes
there. Yes.
They treat it differently.
Yes.
They're much newer buildings as well. They're much newer buildings.
Right.
There's been a proven correlation between crime and crime. And maybe the reason why they're picking on that post office is because the way it looks, it indicates that no one really cares or is concerned, as opposed to the other post office. So there's a real need to, that's one of the reasons why, and we've cited many, safety, whatever, that really something needs to be done.
So let me ask you something, Sheila. Can I ask you something? Suppose the member of Congress, whoever it is that gets involved in this, says we've checked with a post office architect, and one of my friends used to be one of the chief architects for the U.S. Postal Service. That was their job, to design new post offices all over the country. Suppose they say that the way it's sitting right now, we would have to move it like a block back off of Liberty Road. Would people have a problem with that?
I would say that we would have to wait till that comes, because at the time that if they say that's required, that's required. And I know there's some land behind that area because from another project, there's land behind that area because I remember Councilman Jones had talked about the county acquiring that area. And if it gets to that, and it's a matter where we would have to explain it or sell it to the community, I think that we can consider doing that. But
it's safer. It would be safer
because but there is land back there because Councilman Jones, like I said, this was another project. A couple of years ago, there is a lot back there, and so that's there, and that's been considered because he even identified it as a lot that he wanted to purchase for another project. So if that happens, that sounds encouraging. That at least they've said we got this plan, and I guess that at that point we can take it up.
Yeah. So thank you, Aaron, for offering to draft a sort of a template letter. And I would encourage everybody, if you have specific stories like yours, Kaylin, or things that you've witnessed there, whatever, make sure you personalize it and really bring those things forward that that only you can describe.
One other observation too, that building is below grade level. The fact that below grade level, it means that the people who are robbing those boxes feel secure that they will not be seen or caught.
Yeah.
So it's the lack of visibility, that's what it is. Okay, let's move on.
Danny, did you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, it's been known that that particular area, that node, has been underrepresented for the longest time. There hasn't been a lot of attention, a lot of money put in that particular area. When you're talking about that post office, look at all the other buildings that are there as well. That area is just not being taken care of properly. And that's why that area looks different than these other nodes as you go up Liberty Road. And it's been underserved. And that's just a great example of one building, but it's a plethora of buildings that needs attention there as well.
Yeah.
So we must understand that, and we must look at all of those buildings. That's why the CDO is dealing with that area now. At first, the CDO wasn't even thinking about that area below the Beltway. So that area needs to be looked at because it's been underserved, and it needs more attention, more funding, and more revitalization. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great point, and could be a good, further point to make in terms of why it's time to pay some attention to this place.
Absolutely.
Okay, Linda, I see we've just got a few more minutes here. Is there something quick that you want to add on this discussion?
Well, you know, a topic we've already discussed at 2 or 3 meetings, which I had hoped we would get back to, which was several people had said they wanted to have a proposed as part of the 4th District Budget Town Hall meeting, some changes be made at the Randallstown Community / Aquatic Center. And so I was there along with Albert Barnes and some other people, and we did testify, give some testimony. And I also developed something in writing, which I shared with the county executive, and I think you all may have it as well. It addresses issues that were brought up around the changing room. I think, Daphne, you and I saw with our own 2 eyes how really, really, really tight it is in that changing room, which I was shocked. You can open from the hallway and there are people changing their clothes the second you open the door. There were like 12 people in there when I opened in. Daphne didn't even step in. And so, it's something that has to be addressed, plus putting in a kitchen, repurposing the computer room, and using some of the available cabinetry, but creating 2 large spaces that could be separated by a collapsible wall, or so it would either be 2 24 by 24 foot spaces or 1 large 48 by 24 foot space, and then have a kitchen on the other side. So that was submitted. I added it to what we were all asked to add suggestions to the master plan. And that's one of the things that I did submit for the record to the master plan. So I wanted to find out, did other people have a chance to glance at it yet?
I did look at it and I thought it was a very good idea. And you were very specific and detailed in what you wanted and identifying the needs. And I thought it was well laid out. And you said you put a copy in the hands of the county executive. So
Yes, I did.
if he read it or gives it to his reader, whoever that is, I think it most likely may have a chance.
Did you have a chance to see it, Daphne?
I did, yes.
I agreed with your thoughts too, Linda. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, as Linda, you may not have seen my my response to your email, but I did note that this is very directly tied to one of the recommendations in the action plan to look at improving both the number and quality of recreational facilities, both parks and recreation facilities in the corridor. So I guess similar to our discussion on the post office, one of my questions would be maybe how the committee would like to take any action on some of Linda's ideas, if you want to somehow convey, what was the word I'm looking for? Convey agreement or something like that. Danny, did you want to?
Yeah, what I wanted to chime, yes, I did want to chime in. I read it too, Linda. I thought you were very, very specific in what it is that was needed in that location. The fact that the county executive has that letter sent to the county executive, we know that the county executive has it. Daphne just shared that she has it and read it. What we can do now, what we need to do now is just wait and see what their responses are, and then we can move forward with this.
Right. Which in this particular case, the whole facility, both the aquatic and community center, was built with county funds. And so I did also address the alarm system, which has to be addressed. It's piercingly loud and goes off like a hairline trigger.
So what your, like I said, your request was very clear. I don't see any way we can improve on it. So would the committee would we be like drafting a memo in support of adapting that? Is that what?
That's what I'm asking.
Okay, you're asking that the committee draft something that was sent to the county executive and probably the county council that we want to support what you requested.
Right.
Is that's something we can do, Daphne?
You're certainly free to make that motion, and then if the rest of the committee agrees, I would look to somebody to draft that and circulate it.
I'll make a motion that the committee drafts a letter in support of Linda's request.
Great.
A second.
Thank you. Do we have any volunteers to draft said letter?
You're on the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. Thank you. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay. Hearing none, let's vote on that same way we did before. Hand raise.
It's unanimous.
It looks like it is unanimous. Thank you.
Okay,
And
it's
Linda,
8 o'clock. I
Linda,
have to
I think
go.
you should draft it.
8 o'clock. I have to go. Good night.
Thank you, Aaron. Good night. I'm
That's
sorry.
fine.
Danny, did you say, or did somebody volunteer to draft
Linda should
that?
draft it.
He said, he asked if Linda would draft it.
I mean, I can draft it, but I'm also the person that did the thing. I mean, I want you all to be the ones.
No, if you draft it, it's going to be signed by the group. It's not going to be signed by you.
Exactly.
But you're writing it on our behalf. And since you got the passion and the fervency already.
Okay. All right. Sure.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, folks, it is 8 o'clock, and we had one agenda item that we didn't get to, which was a continuation on our discussion of the purpose of the committee and its structure. I have some things I'd like to share with you about suggestions for how we could kind of organize ourselves a little bit more formally without actually, becoming a 501c3 or something like that. But suffice it to say, this group is not the only one of its kind in the county. And so the planning department is working on sort of a template for how organizations like the Liberty Road Gateways Committee can best be structured so that you all have some agency over your agendas and how you're meeting and how you're addressing the plan. And you have some, particularly some leadership from among your ranks that are helping to guide that work. So what I'd like to do is follow up this meeting with a little summary of what we're working on, what some of those organizational structures may be, and then we can bring that up at the next meeting for further discussion. Does that sound good?
Yeah.
Okay,
Mhm.
wonderful. Well, thank you all for
wait,
a
Daphne,
great meeting.
Daphne?
Yes, sorry.
Could we add for the agenda for next meeting 2 items, please? One is pedestrian safety on Liberty Road, and the other one is signage for the Randallstown Community Center. So if we put them on the agenda for the next meeting, I'll bring those issues up.
Okay. And I will follow up with you, Sheila, the same way I did about the post office, just to get a little more information so I know how much time and where to put it on the agenda. Okay.
The document I sent you is called Choice Neighborhoods. So if you all hear about it, that's the $98 million pot of money that we have access to as a country. And they want ideas to come in, applications to come in from groups like this.
Okay.
And there's also in April and in June, neighborhood disaster planning and response. So you'll see that as part of that same document that I sent to Daphne. I know I'm going to attend at least one of those trainings.
All right.
Daphne, I hope you feel
Thank
better.
you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. You guys have a great rest of your evening. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we
Thank
adjourn this
you.
meeting.
Thank you so much. Meeting adjourned. Have a great night.
Thank
You too.
you.